I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
OMG, what's going on, y'all? Happy Sunday and happy God Friended Me Day. I'm your favorite Afro-Latina and your resident minister in training, Sally, or Franceli, as they like to call me. And of course, I got one of my favorite people here, my girl, Mina, who's also a friend of God and loves to talk all things God friended me. What's going on, Mina?
What's up, you guys? I'm so glad that you're temporarily saving me from quarantine because I'm about to lose my mind. I don't know what I'm going to do when this show is over next week because, this is keeping me slightly sane during quarantine. Not going to lie. Mixing up my routine a bit.
I'm so sad, guys. I don't know those out there. Of course, if you love God Friended Me, then you've been following the tea, the news and gossip, which honestly, it's just, I can't even wait for the end of the episode to talk about the news and gossip, which is that God Friended Me got canceled. I'm so upset. Although we have some news and gossip for you that's going to make up for this bad news at the top of this episode.
Yeah.
But when I tell you, man, we got such a conversation to have. So much in store for you guys. We'll get into all things God Friended Me. We have some juicy news and gossip to give you about the season finale next week. And of course, we'll get into God Speaks, where we talk about how God has spoken to us this week. But in the meantime, in between time, while you're living that quarantine life, let's go ahead and talk about what we thought about tonight's episode. Mina, go ahead and give me a recap of how you felt about collateral damage.
I really liked, it was kind of like what I expected from the teaser from last week at the end of the episode. I like how, Miles walks in and he has no idea what he's walking into. And then he realizes that even while he's been helping out his friend's suggestions, his good actions has done some irreversible damage to other people involved without him even knowing about it. So that really sums up how I feel about it, is I was very intrigued by that concept.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for me, the interesting thing is that
It's paved with good intentions.
Sorry, you had cut out, so I didn't know that you weren't done talking. I'm sorry, Mina.
Oh, no, it's cool.
So, I mean, for sure, for me, tonight's episode, I loved all the plot twists and turns. Overall, what I was really excited about this episode is that people were held accountable to their actions. There wasn't no babysitting and pacifying people.
Mm-hmm.
People were being confrontational, not necessarily in a mean way, but in a very direct way. People were just finally confronting their feelings, their thoughts, their trust issues, their emotions. It was really great to see people just step up. So let's just get right into it. I want to get into Allie. For whatever the reason, she seems to be where I want to go first. I really want to talk about Allie's trajectory. As we know from last week, we saw that she lost all her hair. And she's, giving Emily a chance. Things are going well from what it's looking like. They're dating. It's on the up and up. But of course, Allie's triggered with some trust issues. Rightfully so. I think that, I don't know about you, Mina, but when you're in a very vulnerable space in your life, cancer will already make you doubt if you're worthy of dating. That's right. Why she was reluctant to date in the first place. So to see a text message from someone else saying, "Oh, it's really great seeing you," I naturally could see that could take anyone, off their mark, because there's some girls that just have trust issues, period. Girl, you need to see a therapist. You need some healing, right? You're just making up stuff. And there are other people that genuinely, depending on where you are, and it makes sense that that's what's triggered. And for me, I feel like Allie's triggering behavior was validated. What did you think?
I totally thought that it was validated. I really feel if I were to see a text message and it said that, even if I'm not in a vulnerable state, even if I'm doing my thing, I'm fine, I'm thriving, I'm happy, everything's great, I see a text like that, I'm ew, what are you doing? And with me, I'm the more indirect confronter, because I want to see are you lying to me? Can I trust you? So I'll ask a question and I'll see, is this person being honest with me? And then because I don't want to show all my cards at first. I want to see how they're gonna answer. Oh, have you been speaking with your ex recently? Have you been doing this? And then based on how they answer, then I'll be oh, really? Because I saw this. I don't want to put my cards out first and then say that I saw it. I want to see if they're honest at first.
I'm going to pray for you. We're gonna have to level up our how we I mean, no judgment. Like, I get it. I used to be like that too, like that passive aggressive kind
Mhm.
of like, and I've learned even tonight I had a really hard conversation that I had to be very direct and put all my cards out on the table. They're not easy conversations to have, but
Right.
they're necessary for yourself and for the person on the receiving end. Like, how else will people grow and or be held accountable if we're not honest about where we are or how their actions affect us, right? And wanting to know the truth. I don't think that there's anything wrong with needing transparency and truth in a relationship. I think that that communication is really important in a relationship, and I'm really glad that effective communication is putting your cards on the table, right? Like, that's the scary part about really being with someone. It's like choosing to be vulnerable and to put all your cards on the table. That's the only way you do it, like with the most sincerity and earnest. And but it also puts you in the danger zone, right? Because it leaves you open to get just stabbed all over the place. It's a risk that we take, right? And but again, I
And it goes
really
a long way. And
yeah,
and the thing is, I feel like oftentimes we're like, "Oh, I don't wanna be too vulnerable because if I am, then they're gonna know my weakness." But then if anyone exploits your weakness against you, you know that they're not worthy of being your life partner.
then
So
they're not for you.
there really is no downside to being vulnerable. I think it is really difficult though.
Yes.
Um, so obviously, like, I can understand why it's hard for some people to open up, but in this case, like, I had a lot of respect for how Ali went about it.
Oh my gosh. So
Because
good.
she's so, like, level-headed all the time. This was the one time that we see her being a little jealous, and, like, I get it. I get it. She doesn't wanna be, like, played, and she's already has enough on her plate. She doesn't want another stressor. I totally get it, and I do like Emily. I hate that there wasn't transparency, though, like, for someone to just be like, "Just trust me?" Like, no! Like,
Well,
I get
hey,
that, but, like, oh, like, explain yourself, please, because then my mind is running with all sorts of questions and
well,
eh
again, it goes back to like self-reflection, right? Self-work. Like, okay, it does take a lot for you to trust someone. And but if someone's asking you to give it to them, honestly, we should give it to them unless otherwise warranted for that not to be there. Like, I feel like trust should be given. And then if you break it, then that's on you. But ultimately everyone should have a clean slate. Like, I shouldn't hold the next person accountable for the trust issues that I've had in the past for how people have done me before. This is a brand new person, you
I
know.
love that you think that way, Franceli, because that's kind of how I think. But a lot of people that I know that are close to me, it's the opposite, where they're
Right.
like, "Give me a reason to trust you. Like, why should I trust you until you deem yourself worthy?" Where like the slate isn't that everyone should be trusted. It's that no, you have to prove yourself in order to be trusted. Whereas with me, I feel like I trust most people until I have a reason not to, and then that's when the wall goes up. So like, I do get Allie. I do get
Right.
that.
Yeah, like, I really feel like it's just a really good example of what emotional intelligence looks like, even
Mhm.
in the midst of like you going through something. And ultimately, look where it got her at the end of it. Like you said, granted, there wasn't complete transparency at first, but I think it just wasn't the time and the place that she needed or could address it. And that's another thing, too. I think a lot of times what's difficult with partnerships is we want to address it when we want to address it, and we want people to do it when we want. Here's the thing: you can be effectively communicative and say, hey, I saw this, I have this issue. What do you think? And then you still have to be patient enough and loving enough to allow that person the time to process that and come to you when they're ready. And she was ready, as we saw towards the end of the episode, where
Mhm.
then everything came to its head. Like, yes, she was my ex-girlfriend. Yes, I was texting her, but I really wanted to tell her how I really felt about you. And it was such a like beautiful moment. Again, it goes to show that like everything comes out in the end, and us spending all this time stressing and worrying, where does it get us? Because the truth always comes out. If someone,
Mhm.
like, that's why I always said, like,
It
in
does.
relationships, I'm not gonna go looking through your phone to see, because let me tell you something. If you're doing me dirty, the Lord that I pray to is gonna
Yeah.
make sure that you get exposed. There's no, everything done in the dark comes to the light, my mom always says. So
Yeah.
it's like, I don't gotta trip. I don't gotta go looking for it, because God will friend me. And
Right.
me
I
and God
I
are
I d
friends.
I do love that. Also, I was thinking about this, like, weird double standard about how, like, we see Emily and she says those things about like, yeah, I met up with her to tell her like that I'm in love with you. And I'm like, oh, that's so cute. And I'm like, if that were a guy, nobody would be believing that. That would have F boy written all over it. I
Right.
love that her being a girl is like that double standard where we're like, yeah, we automatically trust.
Yeah. Like we're like,
I love
you
that.
know what?
If any of my female friends told me that a guy that they were dating said that, I'd be like, girl, bye. Like, like get rid
What are
of
you
it.
talking about? What are you talking about? Speaking of girl, bye. That's how I've been feeling about Cara lately. I don't know what's going on, where she's been, but let's just get right into it. Like, I want to get on the Cara perspective of the new friend suggestion, right? As we all know, Miles has been getting trolled from this guy about his podcast, and Rakesh feels like, well, that means you're kind of successful. But as we see from the preview and tonight, that there's a ripple effect to how he's helped people, and specifically for Trevor, the ramifications of the lieutenant getting with Rose and realizing, well, Rose was the love of his life, and he never got to tell her. Now, very, very similar. I find it that as I'm going through my ministry and being a minister in training, the things that I teach and the things that I have to preach on, a lot of times isn't always for other people. Everything that I'm teaching, a lot of times is something I'm already having to be taught about, or that I just learned, or that I'm still processing, and that the Lord gives me to then use as an example of my life to then put forward. And I felt like that's what happened in this episode. Like, here, Miles is in a very similar situation. He's in love with a woman. He hasn't been able to tell that he's still in love with her, and she's happy with another man. And so, ooh, dun dun dun. The next friend suggestion is exactly a similar scenario. I mean, Cara's not going to the altar in a few days.
Mhm.
In Trevor's case, where Rose is getting married soon, but there was a similarity here, and I really felt like it was a test. God will put us in similar situations to test us, and sometimes to make sure we don't judge other people. I think a lot of times we judge other people's situations, and then God will put you in the same situation to see, well, how you gonna handle it? You wanted to judge so much what someone else would do in that scenario. Boop, now you're in the same one. So that's why I always say, be careful who you judge and how you judge them, because the Lord might put you in the same exact spot. So tell me what you thought about Cara's response throughout this episode about how to handle, because I felt like she was throwing in little innuendos too, based on her knowing she's in a similar predicament.
Yeah, I don't know. I felt like Cara wasn't being super direct or honest with herself, especially like we feel like Adam's kind of like, hey, I think that Miles still has feelings for you. And she's like, no, that's ridiculous. We're broken up. And he's like, but you never like actually broke up. It just kind of ended. There was no like official breakup. And she's like, but it's over. It has the same result. And I feel like that kind of like told me everything that I needed to know about Cara in that instant. I don't think she's a bad person, but for you to say, oh, it has the same result, it's fine, means that you kind of have like this external locus of control where you're not taking responsibility for the way things played out. And you're like, well, it just is this way, versus like realizing you didn't go about it in the best way that you could have, nor are you trying to like rectify the situation. And it is a difficult situation to be in, but I feel like Cara needs to be more process oriented and not so results oriented. Not say like, oh, it has the same result, we're already broken up, so it's fine. Yeah, but you never had that conversation with Miles saying like, hey, we're broken up and it's time to move on and I'm going to start seeing other people. You just kind of like did those things and then like begrudgingly told him once you were confronted about it. And I think that's very different, and not direct. And it is really difficult to be direct, especially when you know you're hurting someone's feelings by being direct. But
Mhm.
ultimately, I think you owe the other person that respect, especially when you built a relationship with them, to be like, hey, like I love you and you're my friend. So as my friend, I'm telling you what's going on in my life.
Right. I mean, here's the thing. I feel like Adam's trust issues, and not trust issues like he thinks Carl would do anything, but kind of his reservations, I also believe are warranted. Like, it's like, hey, um, I don't want to be a choice. I want to be the choice,
Right.
Because it's like, to a certain degree, he's the consolation prize. Like, you guys can't be together, so you're with me. And I can understand how that can feel kind of like second place. And listen, as to quote a good movie that I love, if you ain't first, you're last. Like it just that's what it feels like for people, like if I'm not in the number one spot, if I don't feel special, if to a certain degree, it's like you see him every day too. Like I can see his heart in it all. What did you think about his decision to break up with her this episode?
You see, I had a very different perspective than what you're saying right now. For me, I was like, really? Like, because somebody else like still has feelings for her, you're just gonna like dip out? Like, really? That's not really your decision to make. That's Kara's decision to make. And if she's telling you she's into you, if you really loved her and cared about her, you would fight for her. Like, you wouldn't just let someone else from her past like come into the picture, even if you thought the relationship was stronger. Like, I don't feel like if I was dating someone and they had feelings for someone else, like if they had feelings for someone else, that's very different from someone else having feelings for them. So if
Right.
that person is telling me, oh, it's nothing, and they're into me, then why would I just dip out to allow that other person to come into that person's life? It genuinely makes no sense. And also from a writing perspective, it was very unsatisfying because here again, we have a situation in which Cara is not responsible for her own destiny. Cara hasn't chosen to break up with him. He's making the decision easier for her. So
Yeah.
once more, it's very passive. It's super like frustrating because I would have liked Cara to like have the realization, I want to be with Miles and work things out, or I don't want to be with Miles and I want to be with Adam. Not having the man choose for her and like kind of say what's best for her based on what he perceives to be Miles's undying love for her. So what if Miles loves her? You don't love her? Like, I don't know. It just like rubbed me the wrong way. And I really didn't like seeing it play out that way. It really bothered me.
I totally hear where you're coming from. I feel like if Cara was definitive in saying, I broke up with him because I no longer want to be with him. It doesn't serve me. It's not what's best for me. He's not God's best for me. He's not my destiny. Whatever. Like that really solidifies it. But because she said, the God account didn't want us together, that doesn't negate that she didn't want them to be together. She wanted them to be together, but circumstances out of her control means they can't. So that tells me there's still feelings there for her as well. So
and I wish she at least said that though.
Right.
Like, here's the thing, Franceli, like that's fine. Everything she says, it feels like she half-ass says it, where she's like, no, we've broken up, and like you don't even believe it in her voice.
She's not being honest.
It makes her a great actress. I don't dislike the actress. It's the character that I dislike because she doesn't have any sort of like firmness or like strong sense of self when she says these things. It feels like she's just letting like the wind blow her in whatever direction and not taking control of her own life and her own decisions. And it drives me absolutely nuts. And I'm so over it.
Yeah, for sure. She's definitely not transparent and clear. She definitely tiptoes around things. And like I said, if she was very definitive about saying, hey, I don't want to be with him. He's not what's best for me. I've moved on. But it was kind of like, well, yeah, like you said. So how like folks in the comments are going off, shout outs to Ivan and Asher. We're just going back and forth about this breakup. But the reality is like Asher said, like, this really reveals to me, like, are you even worth fighting for? Like, why would people are like, man, he should have fought for her. And I get what you're saying. Like, why would you just leave? But you haven't given me real security and a foundation to stand on, to be honest. Like, if I was Adam, I'd be out too.
Yeah.
And
I get it. I just, like I said, I get why he'd want to be out, but it's just like, I feel like there should have been more of a conversation. It was very unsatisfying. It felt so incomplete. And knowing that we only have one episode left to resolve all of this, it just doesn't feel like enough time.
It really doesn't. Okay, speaking of time, let's keep talking because we don't have a lot of time left. I really want to get into this friend suggestion. Trevor. Guys, oh my gosh. Trevor is a loose case, a loose cannon. I mean,
he's a mess.
When he said, wait a minute, maybe that's why God friended me. God sent you as the friend suggestion. Like, you're meant to help break them up. And it was like this whole thing. I really appreciated that Miles decided to take a different route and maybe go through the soulmate app. And like, here's the thing that I realized about God and or your friends or any wise counsel, right? wise counsel will be whispered to you, like, hey, maybe you should try another way, maybe you should do it this way, but you're so gun-ho on doing it your way. Trevor
Mhm.
was so gun-ho on doing it his way instead of being submitted to what is the best way, what is God's way or the universe's way, or whatever you allow to lead you and be your compass. But I always feel like you can't always operate on what you feel is right and what you think is right, because our feelings can distort the truth and can distort what can be right or wrong. And so I the Bible's very clear on we shouldn't be governed by our emotions. My mom used to always say, don't make really important life decisions when you're really emotional, because that emotion will change and will, evolve. And do you want to make a decision that'll affect you for the rest of your life based on how you just feel in this moment right now, that you might
Mhm.
not feel in a few moments later? So I feel like he got caught up in this moment. He embarrassed himself and them, and then just try to walk away. But everyone tried to tell you not to handle it this way. I feel like Trevor was so stubborn, but even as the Bible says, God will work all things out for your greater good. So even in his mistake, it still worked out for the greater good, as we saw in the storyline. But how do you feel about Trevor and how all things panned out?
I definitely wasn't expecting it to go like that. Like, I thought that once he confesses his love or doesn't, whatever route he chooses, that there would be like some sort of response or someone getting upset or something more dramatic. But it felt a lot more realistic for everyone to just like stare, and like for there to be like this intense awkwardness. And like silence in a lot of ways is more humiliating than someone saying something to someone, because at that point you're kind of like faced with the actions of what that you've just like done.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that, like even though everyone was telling him not to do it, I respect him for doing what he wanted to do and not just following like some random person, aka Miles, that he just met like a week ago or like a few days ago. When it comes to decisions of the heart, he was presented an opportunity. Let's say that he did confess his love and Rose was like, "Oh my god, I love you so much. I then all of us would be here saying, good for him. But because the result wasn't that, it kind of like changes our perception of his actions. And that's what drives me crazy is that so often we judge someone based on the result of their actions rather like what was the reasoning behind it. And I think it was great that he went ahead and did that. He's just like a little oblivious and unaware. Like
Right.
she wouldn't invite you to speak at the wedding or at the reception
She was
if
low
she
key in
had
love with you.
yeah, like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, why would she tell you last minute about it? I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know.
I mean, like you said, it still all worked out the way it was supposed to, right? And
Mhm,
what I loved is her saying, you know, I'm sorry that it's not the kind of love that you want, but you
mhm,
don't just get to walk away. And I really, it was such a beautiful moment for me, because I feel like God is love, and love transforms and it changes and it looks different, and love is hard, especially when you feel like it's not reciprocated the same. So that's a hard conversation to have. It's a
mhm.
hard thing to work through, but if it's worth it, you'll do it. And she felt that this relationship was worth working through the hard stuff to keep intact. And that's the thing, nowadays we walk away from such important things so flippantly because we want it to look like what we want it to look like, and we don't want to do the hard work, the emotional work that it takes to kind of move beyond it. And so kudos to them to work through all that stuff. We're running low on time, so I just want to go ahead and say, listen, Corey, I already knew was a liar. And the reality is we'll see next week why he's trying to destroy the God account, which is so selfish and so sad. And before we get into predictions, let's go ahead and to get into some news and gossip.
Yes.
Mina, do you want to tell the people the incredible news that we
AfterBuzz
have for our
TV
season
News.
finale episode?
Oh my god, yes. The amazing news is that even though God Friended Me has been canceled and there won't be a season 3, we are getting a very, very special guest next week for the season finale. Who is it, Francelli? Who is
Brandon
it?
Michael Hall!
Miles is coming on the show.
Miles is going to do the season finale with us. I'm so excited that he's going to be hanging out on the after show with us. It's going to be epic and amazing. Hopefully he'll answer all of our unanswered questions. I have so many things to ask him. am just jumping for joy and so excited. I'm going to record this and send it to him because he needs to know how pumped I am about this next week. And guys, people are confused. They're like, there's 2 episodes left in the season. There are 2 episodes left. Next week will be a 2-hour season finale of God Friended Me. I'm really sad, but again, so excited to talk to the Miles Finer next week. Woo! So,
yes. And if you guys have any questions for Miles, for Brandon Michael Hall, please leave them in the comments below. Not the live chat, but like in the actual comments under the video. Make sure to like the video and also subscribe to AfterBuzz TV, and make sure to leave a comment asking whatever question you have about season 1, season 2, Brandon Michael Hall, Miles, Cara, whoever you want. Ivan, I know you have a lot of questions. I can feel it. I can sense it. So whatever questions you have, please leave them. We are so beyond excited to make this happen. I'm so thankful that Brandon has decided to come on. This is huge news, and I freaking love him. We both do.
You know, he's my bestie. Like, we're besties in my mind. I already told him when I talked to him. I talked to him a couple of days ago. I was like, you know, we're besties, right? But yeah, so while we're there, let's go into our special segment, God Speaks, where we speak about how God spoken to us this week. Mina, how has God spoken to you on week 6 of quarantine?
I don't know. Like, I don't know how people in other parts of the world do this. Like, you know, I'm losing it. I'm honestly like, I know you see this bubbly face every time we do like God Friended Me, and I'm always smiling, but like we FaceTime while we do the show, and I'm like literally losing my mind, getting so annoyed and like snappy. And I hate it when I'm like that, but like, I don't know how God is speaking to me. I guess I'm just like learning like life outside of normal life, and like how to like slow things down, and like trying to find ways to be creative, because the world wasn't always like this. Like, you know, at least we have like technology at our fingertips and all these other things that are great. But honestly, I'm just trying to like learn how to cope. It's been really hard. Like, I'm not gonna like sugarcoat this and say God has spoken to me, because I'm still waiting for God to speak right now.
I feel like this week, how God has spoken to me has been some of that. Like, I realize how hard it is for me to be still, because I'm so used to hustling and moving and going, and so many things have come to the surface for me and have been triggered in me. And so I think what God is speaking is that it's time to heal in a whole other new way. And I'm down to the fact that I'm really like thinking of like, not thinking that I'm going to start therapy. And, you know, I've always been an advocate of therapy, but not necessarily feeling like I was in a place where I needed it. Like, I've always felt like I had a good sense on my spiritual walk, but you can have God and therapy, you know, like I have church and I have pastors that are incredible and that really lead me and guide me. Yes. And I think that I also now, on this next level, this next layer that God has revealed in my healing, got to do some of that. So I'm excited to combine both the spiritual and the natural and see how God speaks to me through that. So that's how God spoke to me this week. It's time to get some therapy. Speaking of which, I'm going to need therapy once this show ends for real. Tell me what predictions you have for this season finale. Do you think it's a person behind this God account? Is it just a computer glitch? What is Corey doing? Tell me, what are your predictions?
You know, it's really hard to say because we had this conversation behind the scenes, and obviously quarantine has even affected filming for God Friended Me. So there's a possibility that the ending that the writers intended on isn't even going to be the ending that we're going to see. So I'll be really curious to know, like, A, do we find out who's behind the God account? And for some reason, I feel like we won't. But it would also be interesting if they incorporated some sort of like quarantine Zoom call in the finale, since that was what was going on when they couldn't film. Like, I wonder if they filmed anything like that remotely. I do think that there is going to be an end to the God account, but not in the way that we think. You know, I think Corey is going to end it in the way that it's structured now, but I think something new is going to emerge. And I think all the people who have been benefited from the God account are going to start some sort of like nonprofit organization or something where they get to help people. And it's through that organization, and it's going to be like a God Friended Me organization.
Yeah. Well, Ivan in the chat believes that the show is going to end on a cliffhanger. They're going to leave us hanging. I really hope not. I really hope, when I was talking to Brandon, he was saying on his live that he thinks that they're going to end the show in a way that will really bring some closure to the fans. So we'll see what happens. Honestly, I don't have any particular prediction besides that I just really want to see God's hand in it. I want to
Yeah.
see what does God have to say in the end of all of this. So it'll be really cool to see what does God say at the end of this finale. And so I just want to thank everyone who watches with us every week, who joins us here on the AfterBuzz show. It's been a pleasure to do this. Like I said, I'm so excited next week. Mina, why don't you tell everyone how they can stay following you and they can talk to you all week leading up to next week?
You guys, please, you'll be doing me a favor if you either slide into my DMs on Instagram and keep me sane, or if you go on TikTok at Mina Makes Magic, because I really need social human interaction right now. You'll be doing me a huge favor. So go follow me, interact with me, and we can talk all things God friended me or anything else.
Yes, of course. And your favorite Afro Latina here and resident minister in training, you can follow me at all the things at Selly Hangout. Let's hang out. Let's talk. I'm so excited. Tweet me or Instagram me any questions that you have for Brandon next week. And we'll see y'all next Sunday for the season finale and the show finale of God Friended Me. Love you guys.
Love you.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.